I was 14 at the time. It was an ordinary day. It was a boring Sunday. I had no schoolwork to do or anything. Man, was I bored. So, I decided to go on Instagram for some entertainment. I was scrolling through some pictures and videos. Then all of a sudden, I get a DM. I say, maybe it's someone I know. I go to the DM to check it out, and it's from an older man who I have never seen before. He must have been in his 50s at least. He said that he was looking for a sugar baby. I just responded and told him to leave me alone and that I wasn't interested. When I think about it, I probably should have just blocked him. But then I told him that he was a creep and that I was only 14 years old. Thinking that was the end of it, he responds back to me saying that age is just a number and that he wants to come see me. I told him no, ew, and for him to leave me alone. And I regret it to this day for saying this. But I told him, you don't even know where I live. Then he responds to me with my address and said he is coming to me now. I'm not gonna lie, that scared me a lot because that was actually my real address. I was a little freaked out, but I tried ignoring it and just continuing my day like nothing happened. The next day came and I left for school in the morning. I walked to school. It's about a 15-minute walk. Both my parents couldn't pick me up because they both work in the early morning. As I'm walking to school, I see a car behind me. It felt a little weird as if it was following me, so I ran down a random street to see if the car was actually still following me. And to my surprise, it was. As I was running down the street, I was out of breath and slowed down. The car pulled up to me, and it was the same man I saw on Instagram. I was in shock, and I didn't know what to do, but froze. The man said, "Come in the car, kid. I have some candy for you." I said no thanks, and to leave me alone. I started walking away. He didn't like that, so he followed me from inside the car, then pulled up in front of me, got out of the car, then grabbed me. I was fighting, but he was too strong. He was pulling me to his car, then another car beeps the horn and says, "I'm calling the police." The man then lets go of me, goes back to his car, and drives away. The person from the other car called my parents, and I took the rest of the day off of school to calm down and relax. Missing school that day was the last thing on my mind. It's now 4 years later, and I haven't ever seen the man. I always thought about what would have happened to me if it wasn't for the other car that day. Would I still be alive? I never walked to school since. All I know is I'm lucky to still be alive, and I take every day as it's my last because you never know what could happen. I was working the overnight shift at McDonald's. I know most McDonald's close around midnight, but the one I worked at stayed open all night. I was 17 and dropped out of high school, so I needed a job and they were in desperation for an overnight manager, so I applied and got the job. I remember during the interview that a lot of people had left that job because of creepy things that would happen overnight. I didn't care. I wasn't the type who would get scared easily, and hey, it was a manager role, which meant more money. So one night when I was on the overnight shift, it was just me and my 2 other coworkers. We weren't that busy, so I said that one of you can go home and the other one needs to close with me. So one of them left and the other one stayed. It was awful quiet for some reason. My employee told me that he was going on his lunch break. I said that's fine, I'll hold down the fort. So he went out there to get his food from his car. He told me that someone broke into his car and that he would worry about it after his shift. While I am waiting for customers to come, I noticed a tall man across the street staring at me. I try not to worry about it, but over time, he would move more and more towards the McDonald's slowly. It was every time I would look away, he would slowly move closer to us. I was in the back washing dishes, then I heard a loud stroke. So I ran up in the front to see what it was. And to my surprise, it was the man. He said, "I want free food." And he kept repeating it over and over. "I want free food. I want free food. I want..." I interrupted him. Sir, I'm sorry, but we cannot give free food. He takes a step back and laughs. His face is so creepy and his clothes are all filthy. This man gave me a bad vibe, as in where this wouldn't end up in a good situation. So, for the safety of me and my other employee, I offer him some free fries. The man twitches his head and smiles. Then, my employee steps in the way and says, "No, we are not giving away free food." I told my employee it's fine, just drop it. Then the man looked very, very angry, and he pulled out a knife and launched at my employee and stabbed him. I went to go help, but the man was strong, and he pushed me down, and I started to run. I didn't see a point in fighting because he had a knife, and he was a lot bigger and stronger than me. I ran outside the McDonald's and went to my car to drive to get help. My heart is beating so fast, and I could barely breathe. I see the man come outside to my car with the knife and blood all over his clothes and hands. I then take out oh no, I left the keys inside the McDonald's. I was going to open the car and run for it, but then the man's face appears in the window of the car with a grin smile on his face, and he starts laughing and torments me. There's no buildings around, so I assume the car was my only hope in getting away and getting help. I quickly slide over to the passenger seat and I run back into the McDonald's to get my keys. Then he comes around the corner and knocks me down. As he's about to stab me, the man is whacked against the head by my employee and he falls down unconscious. Me and my employee call the cops. The cops investigate and come back out. They tell us, "We have bad news. There's no man in there." Mine and my employee's eyes widen in shock. I didn't sleep that night. I decided to quit that job and I told my employee to quit as well. But my employee was meeting ends on bills, so he couldn't afford to quit. Then, as I'm watching the news, I found out that the man came back that night and killed my employee and the manager on duty. Thank God I wasn't there. I don't think I'll be telling this story. It's been 50 years since that has happened. I still haven't left my house. Haven't shaved in over 50 years. I wonder what it's like outside. As I peek my head outside, I see the man smiling with a knife. I look down, then back up, and he's gone. I look behind me, and there he is. Well, there's the end of the story. That's the story of how I murdered the McDonald's manager who thought he escaped. Now, I can finally retire. Me and my friends were playing baseball outside. I pitched my friend the ball. He hit the ball very far and it went into my neighbor's backyard. That was the last ball we had left. My parents told us that we can't get a new ball if it goes into our neighbor's backyard again, and we had to be more careful. So, I saw no other choice but to climb over the fence to get our ball. We heard bad things about the neighbor, that once you're in, you don't get out. We were all scared to go, but we all agreed that since my friend hit the ball over the fence, that he should be the one that go gets it. He said, fine, and climbed the fence to go get the ball. We waited a couple minutes for him and nothing. There was no sight of him. Then an hour went by and still nothing. Pure silence. So we went to the front door and knocked on it. No answer. Then the door suddenly creeps open a little and we walk inside. It's a large dark house full of spiderwebs as if someone wasn't living there in years. We split up and go searching for our friend. I take the middle floor, one of my friends went downstairs to the basement to check, and the other one went upstairs to check. We hear screaming coming from downstairs. My friend runs from upstairs and says, "I'll check it out. You go get help." So I immediately run out of the house and I start running back home as fast as I can. As soon as I get home, I tell my parents everything that has happened. As I am telling them, they give me this weird look in disbelief, then laugh. "Son, you never had any friends," my parents tell me. My face lit up in shock. I don't know what to believe. Maybe this is all just a bad dream, I tell myself, but it's not. I look out my window at the house and see a man looking straight at me from the window of the house. He has a creepy grin and bends down, then stands back up with my ball with a note on it that reads, "Come get it, we're waiting for you." It's now been 5 years later. My parents think I went missing. Maybe if my parents just believed me. I was staying up late finishing up some schoolwork. It was just me in the house. My parents were out of town and I was an only child. I was upstairs in my room working on some work. Then I hear a bang coming from downstairs. At first, it freaked me out. Then I just thought maybe something just fell. But that was a very large bang for just something to fall over. So let me go check it out, I said. So I went downstairs to go check it out and I see that the window is broken. I was a little scared at first, but then I thought, it's storming outside, so it has to be the storm and the strong winds. I called my parents to let them know what has just happened, but they didn't pick up. I'll just call them later, I tell myself. As I'm walking upstairs, I hear drawers and cabinets open and close rapidly in my kitchen. I walk back downstairs to my kitchen to go check it out, and it's some man. He looks like he's homeless and was looking for some food. He gave me this weird stare and smile and started walking towards me very slowly. What he didn't realize was my knife set was right next to him, but he didn't look back to see it. He tried grabbing me, but I ducked and went over to my knife set and grabbed a knife. I held it in front of me to defend myself and told him to get lost and that I was calling the cops. The man backed away and then jumped out of the broken window and there was no sight of him. Then the police arrived. I told them what has happened and they told me that they never found the man. To this day, I am scared of being alone and I always wonder what would have happened to me if the man saw the knives behind him. Would I still be here telling this story? I am a social influencer. I was going to visit some friends on a weekend. It was a holiday and my friends lived a couple of hours away. So I left in the afternoon and I would be there by nighttime. As I am driving for about an hour, it starts to storm very hard. I can barely see out of the window and the roads were very slippery and I was still about an hour and a half from my friends. So I just told myself to play it safe. And there was a hotel right there. So I decided to stay in the hotel until the storm would pass. I booked a room to stay there for what I thought would just be an hour or two, the most. But looking at the weather report, it looks like I would be there at least until tomorrow morning. I said. I texted my friends about the storm and that I probably wouldn't be there until tomorrow morning. They said it was fine and to sleep it off. As I'm in my hotel room, I notice there's nobody else here besides me. It feels empty, too empty, I told myself. Then, I hear a sudden knock on the door. My eyes widen, and I go to open it up, and right before I do, they say, "Room service." I look confused, well, because I never ordered any room service. So I politely reply and say, "I'm okay, please just come back again later." Then I hear a crazy laugh. Then there's silence. I slowly approach the door to take a look at the peephole and see a man holding a knife with a crazy grin look on his face. He then stares at the peephole as if he knows I'm looking through it, and then he smiles and then starts banging on the door as loud as possible. I back up and call the police. No answer. Then I call the lobby. No answer. Then the banging stops. I hear the man on the other side of the wall trying to get through. So I open the front door and run for it. Then the man is in front of me with a knife and I fall down. He gets on top of me and lifts his knife, and then everything becomes dark. I wake up in my car and call my friends to let them know that I was back on the road and I would be there as soon as possible. I then put my phone down and remember, I don't have any friends and that I'm homeless. Oof, it was just all a bad dream, I said, smiling. As I look to my left, I see the hotel that was in my dream and the man in the window smiling and waving his knife at me. Then the police arrive right in front of me. I wake up again due to an alarm. The alarm says, "Get up, everyone, get up." As I get up, there are chains around me. I am locked in a small white room. Then a security guard opens the door in front of me, and that door reads, "Mental institution, our most dangerous criminal." As I'm walking out the door, I remember that wasn't all a dream. That was the story of how I attempted to murder a famous social influencer and killed everyone else in that hotel, and how I ended up here. Just one more year left in here, I say to myself. Then I can make my second attempt. That is why I pleaded crazy to end up in here and not in prison for life. I'm coming for you, social influencer, to finish the job.
While the rest of the world were dealing with the coronavirus and everyone was trying to keep their distance of at least 2 meters, my small village, which was in the middle of nowhere, had a very different type of virus. My small village, which was in the middle of nowhere, had a different type of a virus, and the only way to keep this other virus out was to keep as close to each other as possible. It was only our village, and we were told not to spread knowledge of it, and even our social media was hacked to prevent any of us to spread the message of this other virus. I do not know what they call it. Not even the newspapers or the local news could do a story on it. Our village was told to keep close to each other as much as possible with lots of social contact, and what came next was nothing but pure evil. All of the perverts and creepy people started touching who they liked on the advice that we were told to keep close to everyone. The closer the better, our village was told. The things that went on were disgusting, and females, males and children were all touched up and groped inappropriately. It was all allowed, as this was the only way to kill or slow down this other virus that only my village had unfortunately caught. Like I said, it wasn't so long when sick, perverted individuals started taking advantage of this other virus. No police official could do anything, and while the rest of the world were dealing with the coronavirus and keeping distances between themselves, we had to get physically closer to each other. Sure, there was some healthy close contact, like small village festivals, small village parties and barbecues, but it was the horrid individuals who used this to prey on their victims. It was dangerous times for us all. Those who tried to spread the news of this other virus, which you needed to have close contact to eradicate it, was always deleted by some other shadowy organization. The world was dealing with one virus, and that was enough. Everyone tried to stick with their loved ones and close friends. Hardly anyone was walking alone or going out late at night. There were stories of people going out late at night, all on their own, and a stranger starts hugging them on the reason that closeness was needed to combat this other virus. Then one day my daughter came home and was frightened to the high heavens as multiple perverts touched her up, and I was furious, but it was allowed due to this other virus. The virus has still not gone, and I would rather have this coronavirus come to us instead of what we have got. Social distancing is much better than social closeness. What a horrid virus this is, and we are given no explanation why this other virus requires closeness, and no explanation onto how it destroys it. I started hugging my daughter, and she told me I could let go, but I didn't want to let go. She then started complaining that I was being too tight, but I kept on giving the reason that we all need to be close right now. My daughter is struggling to get out of my hug. It's just me and her.
I was on my way to work taking the bus like usual. We hit some traffic, but then it cleared up and I was back on my way to work. The streets are very busy and crowded. I live in New York. It was my stop, so I got off the bus and started walking to the building where I work. I was trying to cross the street to get to my job, but there was so much traffic, so I ran across the road when I finally had a chance. And then I see a bus coming straight at me. Instead of running to the other side of the sidewalk, I instead just freeze and close my eyes and wake up on the sidewalk. Another man tackled me and saved my life, but there was no one there. That's what I felt like. I look up and there's no one there though. I felt someone push me and I didn't see anyone though. Everyone is still walking, carrying on their days as if nothing has just happened. I am a little confused and shocked, but I still have to get to work and I'm gonna be late. So I run into the building, go to my desk, and I start working. As I'm in the middle of working, I hear an alarm go off. It tells us to lock our doors, be quiet, and hide because there is an intruder inside the building. I start to panic, but I try not to worry about it too much. Maybe someone just got lost. It is only me in this room. Everyone else was in different rooms. Then another announcement comes on and tells us that the intruder has a gun. Then I start to panic, but I calm down. Then all of a sudden, I hear banging on my door, yelling at me to come and open the door or that he would shoot me. Now I start panicking a lot and thinking that this is the ending of my life. Then he says he has a hostage, and if I don't come out right away, he will kill the hostage. I didn't think he was telling the truth, but I didn't want to take any risks, so I believed him and I came out. And sure enough, it was just him and no hostage. He then grabs me and says I am his ticket out of here alive. As we're walking out, we are surrounded by cops everywhere. He whispers in my ear and tells me that since he's going down and that there's no way out of this, that I'm going down with him. So he puts his finger on the trigger, and right when he's about to pull it, he has a muscle spasm and lets go of me, and then a cop tackles him to the ground. I've never been so scared in my life. It's 5 years later and the man has just been released. He makes a public speech and the last word he says is my name and then smiles. Then he walks away. Am I nuts? Is he coming for me? Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the story. If you guys want more stories, just slap a like on this video and I'll catch you next one.
Sarah was feeling really down on her luck, sitting in her kitchen, drowning her sorrows, drinking whiskey. She was counting her bills and felt she was sinking deeper and deeper into debt. Suddenly, she got a phone call that changed everything. There was a voice on the other end that explained her and her 3 cousins were willed a big inheritance and they all had to meet up at a local cafe. They all were chatting about this distant relative. The relative had no other family but looked up their relatives online and decided to leave a huge amount of money to them. 2 days later, they all met up in the local cafe. They were talking to the lady who was telling them about the will and going through how much money they were getting. The lady took out a bottle of champagne and said, "I took it on myself to buy this champagne to celebrate." Sarah and her cousins took a glass each. After a while, the women felt drowsy and the woman gave a sinister smile, then said, "Did you notice how quiet the cafe is? That's because it is a Monday, and this cafe doesn't open on a Monday, but I took it on myself to give the owner a false name and rent it out." Sarah and her cousins were getting more and more drowsy. The waiter came up to them and said, "Do you notice me? And the lady talking about a fabricated will that you were talking to? Well, maybe not, because you were probably too busy bullying us to get to know us at all, weren't ye?" The realization dawned on Sarah and her cousins. It was 2 girls who were bullied by them every single day in middle school. The girls spoke again. "Well, yes, ye have bullied us day in day out in school, but we are getting our payback now." Sarah shut her eyes, while the 2 bully victims smiled with satisfaction knowing their bullies have been poisoned.
I met this amazing girl online. She was so beautiful and had an amazing personality. We have been talking for now 7 months, and I don't regret a second of it. I honestly feel like she's the one that I will marry someday. I am 20 years old and she is 17. We always talked about meeting, but we both had busy lives. We FaceTime every night before bed and we'll leave the phone on while we go to sleep. I know some people might think it's weird, but I feel as if it's romantic. I finally saved enough money to come and see her. She lives an hour away. She sent me her address and I was going to leave to see her for the first time tomorrow. It was the night before I was going to go see her and we were on FaceTime together. I looked at her and she looked at me and we both smiled because we were so happy to be with each other. Sometimes I felt like I could just run away with her and leave everything behind. Work in school made it so hard to see her and it both stressed me out so much. We set up our FaceTime because we are going to bed and I say goodnight to her. Then I lay in my bed with my phone right next to me and I fall asleep. I wake up in pitch dark. It must be around 4 a.m. I said to myself. As I was getting ready to go back to sleep, I hear a bang coming from my phone. So I look over at my phone and I see a man in a mask in my girlfriend's room. As I am about to scream and call the police, he looks at me, smiles and pulls out a knife and puts his finger over his mouth and says, "Shh, or someone will get hurt." So I don't say anything. Then I wake back up and it's 2 p.m. What just happened? I ask myself. I go over to my phone and it's dead. I text my girlfriend, making sure she's okay, and no response. Maybe she's still sleeping or she's busy, I tell myself. So I wait for her reply. Nothing. I wait a couple more hours. Still nothing. I was starting to freak out because she usually responds within the hour, the latest. But now it's almost been the whole day and not even one single response. I start to get very nervous and remember my dream, but maybe it wasn't a dream. My eyes widen. I have to go make sure she's okay. So I put in her address on my phone and took a ride over to her house to make sure everything was okay. I finally get there and the house is deserted, as if someone hasn't lived there in over 100 years. There's no other houses around. I get a notification from my phone saying something about a haunted house. I have this app that tells me about the location I am at, and the notification popped up and I went into the app and looked up her house, and what came up surprised me until this day. It said there was a girl who lived here with her parents, and she talked to this guy who loved her so much. They had plans to get married and run away together. But the night before they were going to do that, a man broke into the house and killed her and her parents with a knife. It says that ever since, the girl pretends she is real and gives people false hope and love so others can feel the pain she has. Then I scroll down to a picture of her, and it was the same exact picture of the girl I've been talking to this whole time.
I am here sitting next to my son, and he is just watching the TV as if I'm not even here in the room. My son is a very smart boy, but for some reason he has a really bad temper. His therapist has been making some kind of improvement, but things will have to move really slowly, she told me. Things started getting very bad after my wife died, after being attacked in my home. Not only bad for my son, but things got very bad for me. I tried to reach my son, to get rid of his burning anger, but I just can't seem to reach him. I am a writer, and maybe sometimes I just get caught up in my own bubble when writing and don't have time to spend with my son, or else it's the shock of his mom dying. He didn't see her being attacked, thank God, but I had to give some sort of excuse that she got very ill and died. How was I to tell him the truth, that she was attacked in her own house and sustained a brutal blow to the head which killed her instantly? There is no way I would tell that to a 9-year-old boy. I first started noticing his mood swings after his mom was killed. Before that, he was just like any happy, energetic 9-year-old boy, but things got out of hand really fast as he got more and more aggressive and was getting into fights in school, etc. He spent time with his therapist every Friday after school, an hour to be exact, and his therapist gave him an interesting assignment. Considering I'm a writer, sometimes I wonder why I didn't just tell him myself, why I didn't give him the assignment. My son's name is Jake, by the way, but anyway, back to the assignment. Jake's therapist told him to write about his feelings and to express himself on paper. Jake has been writing a lot lately. I'd love to read what he is saying, but I don't want to invade his privacy. And plus, for some reason, I don't know where he keeps his writing. One day I was going for a walk, and suddenly I was ran over by a bus crossing the road. I am here sitting next to my son, and he is just watching the TV, as if I am not even here, as if I am not in the room. But of course, it's because I am a ghost. I couldn't understand how I could have walked away from being ran over by a bus. It took me a while to realize I was actually dead, but everything came together like pieces in a jigsaw when I finally found some of the writing my son was writing about his feelings. He was using my typewriter, and I looked at the page, and I read the words typed by my son. I am so angry with my dad sometimes. I just wish he was ran over by a truck. Me and my wife were arguing for weeks now. It could be over anything. About forgetting to take out the trash or the most stupid thing. I lost my temper and picked up my typewriter and hit her over the head. She instantly fell dead, and I froze in fear knowing I just killed my wife with my typewriter.
I moved to this new town. I got the house for incredibly cheap. It was a normal day and I just finished work. I came home and sat on my porch with a drink listening to some music. I see one of my neighbors come up to me and introduces himself and his wife, so I offered them to have a drink with me. They join me with a drink on my porch. We go talking about our jobs, then I bring up why I got this house for so cheap. They both smile and look scared, and then they say they have to go check on their kids. I was a little confused, but I just said, okay, I'll talk to you guys later. They go home. Next week, I am on my porch relaxing and listening to music. Then my neighbors come over again. We talk for a little bit, then I bring up why this house was offered to me so cheaply, and even though it's been on the market for years with the price it was at, and how I was the first one to buy it. Then my neighbors tell me that they have to go check on their kids again, and then they leave. I now find this a little strange, so I go upstairs to my computer and look up this house that I am at. And what I see shocks me until this day. I found out that the house I am at now is haunted and that the last 3 people who lived in this house was killed. It's the next day and I tell my neighbors of what I found and they look shocked. I tell them that I have to get out of here, so that I'm leaving tomorrow. My neighbors look very frustrated and then they tell me that I can't leave. I tell them that I have to go and they beg me to stay. I felt a little uneasy and creeped out by the way they were acting, and this time it was only the husband and not the wife. When I asked him where she was, he smiled at me and said she's in a better place now. All of this had creeped me out and I had a bad feeling about everything, so instead I left that night instead of leaving tomorrow morning. I go to stay with my brother until I can get my own house. My brother grabs me and tells me to turn on the TV. So I did, and the news came on and said that a man got arrested for murdering his own kids and wife. And then the picture of the man came up, and it was no other than my old neighbor. My eyes widened in shock, and then the police said that he was planning on killing a man that was his neighbor that night, but he left before he can kill him. Then they said that they captured the man and he's going to jail for life. Thank God, I said. I was so happy that I trusted my instincts, because if I didn't, then I wouldn't be here. And I still wonder if the house was really haunted or if he was just the one killing the people living at the house. I guess only time will tell.
It was 5 kids. The oldest was 17, the youngest 13. It happened in a span of 6 months between autumn 92 and spring 93. The first was Jamal Johns. He lived in the projects with his mother, father, and older brother. No one really knows what time it was. His father and mother went to bed at 10 p.m., and his brother came home from his night job at 3 a.m. All confirmed seeing Jamal in bed. Sometime during the next 3 hours, Jamal walked to the roof and jumped. The investigation was treated as a homicide at first. Jamal had no access to the roof as it was padlocked and only the building supervisor had keys. He was questioned but had several witnesses confirm his whereabouts. The padlock was intact and in the locked position in the morning. The case went cold. Everyone knew Jamal's family wouldn't hurt him. The police had no leads. Until 13 days later, when Jacob Stinson used his brother's .45 to end his life. Jacob's suicide was not connected to Jamal until the third boy took his life the following week. Philip's son, 13, was also found dead, as if he had jumped from his apartment. Though his window and door were both locked, police had to break the door to enter his room. Rumors started. Gang violence between these months slowed. The devil had come to Harlem, or so that was what people were saying. Church congregations grew in size. Most sermons mentioned the suicides or killings in reference to the rumors. "The devil's come because he's been invited," said one minister. The winter came, and with it, one more body. Sam Preston, 15, sat in the courtyard wearing only his underwear. He died from exposure. Several witnesses claimed to have gone in and out of the apartment complex during the night. All swore Sam was not there. All of the victims were known to be nonviolent young men who were liked by all who knew them. In a place filled with so much violence, these boys were a commodity, and they were being taken without reason. The last death was in the spring. This time a girl, Deandra Jays, also known as Dee Dee, jumped in front of the train on the Harlem 125th Street station, as her and two friends were headed to school. This was the only daytime death. She had been completely normal on the walk to the station and at home before that. But just as the train approached, Deandra turned to her friends and said, "Do you want to jump?" The correlation between the cases is speculative, though any resident who lived in the neighborhood during those 6 months will say they are connected. Both of Dee Dee's friends claim that they had heard a man laughing as she hit the tracks. Police and eyewitness reports confirm there were no men on the platform that morning.